Here we are today to discuss this particular issue, and I said that for me, it was one that I thought was important to look at, in no small part because of the kind of construction that we did here at the port, at the airport.
CEQA requires that state and local agencies assess and publicly disclose the environmental impacts of a proposed project. And then once they're determined to exist, they must then minimize or mitigate those impacts to the greatest extent possible.
CEQA is about smart planning. We can't anticipate impacts just by looking at a general plan. We need to take a close look, a meaningful look at what the different parts of a plan entail and figure out what their potential impacts may be and mitigate them where it's necessary and feasible. I think increasing capacity and taking preventative measures to ensure that at the front end of development and at every step that it's being done with CEQA and the criteria in mind.
640 environmental cases sitting in planning right now. Only 49 are in the full EIR, but they represent 24,000 units. You've got the city, you got the municipality as an intermediary, which I would argue it has a capacity problem right now for dealing with the volume of good activity respecting the CEQA law.
So 95 to 97% of the time you have negative declarations or categorical exemptions from CEQA, and only about 1 in 354 approvals ever end in court. That's the Public Policy Institute statistics. It is like going on the freeway. I may be afraid of cops pulling me over and speeding, but that keeps me under the speed limit. So I think the question of fear in the air is a fear of breaking the law. And we do have what's called a private attorney general, and we are acting in the Attorney General's, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer's stead. So that's where a lot of litigation comes from. SB 375 had certain requirements for developing sustainable community strategies, and once they got implemented and approved, then the exemptions would kick in. We are mid-stride in the implementation of that, so I would like to see more implementation of SB 375.
What you have now is a system where you could have a specific plan, let's say for downtown Santa Monica. Once that got certified and the CEQA stuff got taken care of, you could tier, TIER, off of the specific plan and design and build individual projects without having to reinvent the whole CEQA analysis for the individual projects. That's in state law right now. What we've seen in Santa Monica is exactly the kind of one-offs that he's talking about, where you have a powerful developer who goes to the council and they get development agreements, and which are worked out in the back room, and that's, citizenry, we don't know what's going on, and then one day it's presented to the council, and that's that. I personally don't think that that's a good way to do city planning. When you do get to CEQA litigation, the biggest time waste of the whole project, the whole effect, is in the time it takes to get the administrative record together. We've proposed to the legislature that in the big cases anyhow, an electronic record be prepared contemporaneously with what's happening, and then you could certify the record in a week rather than in 9 months.
Let's get together as the BIA and environmental groups and the League of California Cities did to pass the most significant landmark planning legislation in the state's history in the last 50 years, which was SB 375, which tiers off of AB 32, which has made us a world leader around greenhouse gases. Let's actually sit down and stipulate, as you lawyers would say, that CEQA should stay, and that we want to have the toughest and most sensible environmental protections that we can in this state. Then my job is to work with the community and the city council, the elected representatives, to make sure we've got it right. Let's find common ground. Let's hammer out things like AB 436. Let's hammer out things like SB 375, where you're at the table to make sure, damn it, that the environment is protected. You should be, and you would be. And let's have other people at the table who want to actually make sure that stuff gets done, and that development isn't so risky that they have to either make a ton of money or walk away broke. Let's make it predictable.
The emphasis on actually planning and good planning, I really would like to underscore that, so that CEQA does not have to make up for the deficit.
It's a great solution for places that know what they want to be when they grow up. It's not a viable solution for, I think, most evolving cities. Our planning paradigm in California is built around new growth suburban communities, and it's built around zoning. The idea that this solution in our current planning paradigm could work is incomplete.
I would like to strengthen environmental protection in our state. We need to work on making it systematically built into the DNA of our state that we want to reduce greenhouse gases, we want to promote transit usage, we want to eliminate sprawl, and if it takes a new department in Sacramento to do that, I'm signed up for that.
Democracy means we have a diversity of viewpoints and perspectives, and we got to figure out how to navigate all that space. But then the second part is that, democracy without vision, direction, and management is chaos. I think there is consensus where there are bottlenecks and problems that cause suspicion on both sides. One party or another getting a special deal, the notion that there's uncertainty, and then this notion that we actually need real plans that are not parcel to parcel. Those are three interesting things that are actually actionable.
And I'm a big believer that you find truth, you find your way, if you will, ahead when people are listening to one another and collaborating.